News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Dan Schwartzman. German Finance Minister Lars Klingbeil telling reporters in Berlin Monday that President Trump reached a red line with his threat to hit NATO allies with additional tariffs for opposing his bid to annex Greenland. Klingbeil said, quote, "We are constantly experiencing new provocations. We are constantly experiencing new antagonism, which President Trump is seeking. And here we Europeans must make it clear that the limit has been reached." The minister, speaking alongside his French counterpart, said there was a European toolbox available to use to respond to economic blackmail, which they believe should be now examined. Klingbeil was responding to Trump's announcement over the weekend to impose a 10% tariff on goods from 8 European countries starting February 1st, rising to 25% in June unless there's a deal for the, quote, purchase of Greenland. President Trump linking his claims on Greenland to not being awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in a letter to Norway's prime minister. The president says the world is not secure unless the U.S. has, quote, complete and total control of Greenland. The Nobel Peace Prize, though, isn't decided by the Norwegian government, but is awarded by an independent committee. Bloomberg's Oliver Crook says, though, the question now is, where do European leaders go from here?
They basically will hold off on taking any retaliatory action until February the 4th to see if those tariffs in fact come in. But if those tariffs come in, it's hard to imagine a world in which the Europeans will not raise tariffs of their own and start to target some of those U.S. goods and potentially use the anti-coercion instrument, which would give them more sweeping powers to potentially target American tech companies.
That's Bloomberg's Oliver Crook. Markets reacting negatively to the news on Greenland, with futures all down from 1% to 1 2/3%, while European markets are also roiled, down anywhere from 0.2% to 1 2/3%. According to Spain's transport minister, at least 39 people are dead after a high-speed train carrying around 300 passengers traveling between Madrid and Malaga derailed and hit another coming in the opposite direction. The accident took place around 7:45 p.m. local time. Spain has one of the world's largest high-speed train networks, which consists of private and state-owned players. Russian President Vladimir Putin's spokesman Dmitry Peskov says that Putin, quote, received through diplomatic channels, unquote, an invitation to join President Trump's board of peace for the reconstruction of Gaza. Peskov says the Kremlin is reviewing the invitation and is looking to get more details from the U.S. The U.S. Supreme Court scheduled Tuesday as its next opinion day as investors wait for a ruling on President Trump's signature tariffs. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said it's unlikely that the Supreme Court will overturn President Trump's use of emergency powers to impose tariffs. Bessent spoke on NBC's Meet the Press.
We have set these trade deals, and it is very good for the United States. We are balancing our trade deficit.
That's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Cryptos fell sharply as risk assets slipped and haven demand strengthened after President Trump proposed new levies on 8 European countries for their support of Greenland. Bitcoin slid by as much as 3.6% to below $92,000, while other tokens posted steeper losses, with the sell-off knocking about $100 billion off the crypto market's total value. Bitcoin had risen back up to just shy of $98,000 on January 14th before the latest drop. Japan's Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi plans to campaign on a 2-year cut to the sales tax on food in a snap election that will take place with early polling beginning on February 8th. Economists warn the move will cost around 5 trillion yen, equivalent to $31.6 billion per year. Takaichi said she was still considering how to fund the move. That's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Dan Schwartzman, and this is Bloomberg.